Kurtz, the district governor. Thank you, Dave. Sorry, Andrews, 7170. And this is part of our DEI series of bringing in speakers. And we've opened this up to pretty much anybody who wanted to be there. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed in the turnout, but we're going to have an interesting and fun time regardless. Dave Reynolds and Andrew Flash are our co-chairs for our committee, and they've done a good job of getting this together. I'm pretty sure Dr. Bowtie's been to our district at least twice. I know he was at the district conference in Canandaigua 7 years ago. I had a nice conversation with him. I think Regina, you were there that night. I think we had a lot of fun. And I think Todd might have been at the foundation dinner several months prior, but if he remembers, he can be nice and remind us. But I'm not going to go into a long introduction. You guys can look him up or read him. But Todd, it's nice to see your smiling face again. And I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And good evening, everyone. Thank y'all so much for being here today for this conversation. And I am excited. Thank you to David and Andrew for working with my team and working with me to invite little old me to be a part of the conversation. Yes, I am no stranger to this district. I love this district, and I am so in awe and all the things that you all are doing, as well as all the neighboring districts that are joining in today as well. I see you. I see my good friend Julie, and I see a lot of friends on here. So I'm among friends. I'm among friends to have this conversation today. And everyone who's watching later, I look forward to connecting with you in the future today, or the future. So let's get started because I know we don't have a lot of time tonight. And if you're interested, I want to make sure we get to the end so we can get through some Q&A. And so, of course, I'm here to talk about inclusion. And if you have heard me speak before, or if this is your first time, you know one thing that's about me is that I am known as Dr. Bowtie. And I love bow ties, but it is a reason why I show up as Dr. Bowtie because the name was given to me by some of my college students on campus. But I came to this epiphany because I love to wear bow ties. And if you know me well, the bow tie is an acronym. It's an acronym of how I live my life every day. Like my mission is to wake up, to create spaces for all humans to belong and thrive together, one bow tie conversation at a time. And so this bow tie for me is a connector. It allows for me to really connect with different cultures all across the world and have an opportunity around dialogue. And what I have seen in research when I started early in my career is that people, well, and it's still in practice today, people are challenged with how to have dialogue with individuals who look different than them or think differently. Like this is a challenge still today. And so what I created was a very simple acronym. Hopefully it could help engage how you can engage in these type of dialogues. So I'm going to share with you because I consider these are my ground rules for all the conversations. So as we get started, the first letter of bow tie, when we think about the word bow tie, the first letter is the letter B. And this is in this conversation, I need you to be mentally present. Okay, I know we're all virtually connected. I heard coming on the call, someone is cooking right now, and please be safe. I need you to also be present in the kitchen, be safe in the kitchen. But I need everyone to be mentally present because how many of y'all know a lot of people can be physically in the conversation, but mentally absent? So we want us to be mentally present for the conversation. That's ground rule number one. The next letter of bow tie is the letter O, and O stands for openness. I ask that you have an open mind and an open heart. So it's going to be things that I share as a practitioner, as someone passionate, as a fellow Rotarian. And I'm not going to ask that you must agree with everything that I share, but I ask that you just have an open mind and an open heart so you can at least hear and some of the things that I share and receive it And definitely, I love the next letter, which is W, willing to share your own perspective and own story, because I believe everyone on this call has a unique story, and it's up to you to share it. So it's going to be times throughout the conversation that you can activate the chat, or definitely we're going to have a time to have a discussion at the end of the conversation. I'm not sure if we have any bow tie wearers on the call today, but usually people tell me the most challenging part of this bow tie is how to get this knot in the middle. So many individuals, like, they love to wear a bow tie, but it's really challenging. And yes, I do, because I get this question a lot. I do self-tie my ties, right? I don't have any pre-ties. My little baby son, he does have some pre-ties though. I'm not against pre-ties, but the philosophy of the conversation, where I want to land, my friends, is that usually most people are challenged of how to tie the conversation together. How many of you all have came into a lot of dialogue and you leave out like, okay, what was the purpose of that conversation? And so, yeah, I see some hands been raised. And so I'm asking you all, this is where it comes up to you. Some of you all have heard me speak before. Some of you all, this is your first time hearing me speak, but it's up to you to take notes, ask questions, be curious with compassion, and tie it together. And that is the bow tie philosophy. So if that makes sense to you, and if you agree to the bow tie rules in the group chat, can you write the word bow tie? I'm starting to see, I got my first bow tie. I got my second. All right, bow ties are coming in, coming in. I love to see that everyone is agreeing. All right, see, no one has left the call yet, DGs, so we're good to go. So now, since we are ready to have the bow tie conversation, let me tell you what we're going to be discussing really quickly, since I'm among friends. I do want to talk about D&I 101. I'm going to, I know a lot of individuals on this call has been doing work. You all have been having a lot of speaker series around the D&I series. So I definitely just want to level set what D&I means to me and how I show up to that, and also really talk about why it's important for us to continue this dialogue. Of course, because we are among friends and we could also have some external guests, I don't want to come into the conversation and not leave you with any action. I want to ensure that you are aware of some best practices, some things that you can implement in your club or your own community, your workplace, and guess what? Sometimes even your own family. So I definitely want to give you all some feedback there, and then we're going to have a discussion around Q&A. So it should be in and out pretty quickly, but I'm excited for the conversation, the bow tie combo tonight. So let's start with the first level set of diversity and inclusion. So what is diversity and inclusion, Dr. Jenkins? Thank you for asking me. So diversity to me is twofold. Diversity is visible and invisible differences that make someone complete. Okay, so visually, you see me on camera, you see a good looking brown guy over here with a bow tie on and a big smile. That is my visible difference. But invisible, you may not know that I'm one of 13 kids. I can habla Espanol and follow Portuguese. I'm afraid of heights, but I love to travel in planes. So I want people to understand, when we talk about the word diversity, yes, it's a lot of great traits. It's a lot of great characteristics. It's things that you can see on the outside, and it's also things you can never see, right? Like your faith, your experiences, your background, etc. All those things is a spectrum. All those things are diversity. Okay, makes sense? Okay, I see some head nod, because I'm giving you like 101, because so many times when we come into these conversations, it's that people expect when you say DEI, IED, EDI, or however you want to put the acronym, that we're all on the same page of what that means. So I have learned in my career, in every conversation, if I'm given an opportunity, I want to level set to this, express my perspective and welcome others. So that's diversity. Let's go to this next word that we throw out a lot lately, inclusion. What is inclusion? Inclusion is fun. Inclusion is an action. Inclusion is creating an environment where we behave in a way that we respect all these visible and invisible differences. Yes, behaviors, right? That's really when it really empowers and equip inclusivity. But it does not just stop at respect, my friends. Inclusion is also ensuring that people are seen and heard. Now, what is fascinating, you put heard in your definition. Yes, the reason why, because how many of you all know you could be doing a lot of talking, but that does not mean anyone is listening. So what we see in research is that humans just want to be seen and they want to be heard. Whether when I say seen, whether they want to be they want to see themselves in the organization. When I say heard, they just want to make sure they have a voice, right? Now, what is fascinating about this is inclusion does not mean that everyone will agree. Inclusion does not mean that every idea will be implemented. But inclusion is ensuring that we have the space, the climate, and culture that we are behaving in a way that we are respecting, valuing, and championing all of these invisible and visible diversity dimensions. Make sense? Very simple. Okay, now let's go to the E. Okay, the E, I get the pleasure of serving on Rotary International Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And when we started talking about equity and equality, it was some challenges around those words internationally. And so we got a lot of interesting feedback around using the word equity versus equality. And it was a lot of different perspectives of why are we choosing certain word choice in the E of DEI. And I work in corporate America, and as a researcher, I work with a lot of companies and Fortune 500 companies around equity versus equality. And so I used to send my white papers as some pre-reads before I go into the board meeting. I quickly realized they do not read before they come into the board meeting. And so what I started to do, and I share with you the most easiest way for me to explain equity and equity versus equality, is that I just simply show them my shoe. Yeah, these shoes look nice. I wear a size 10 and a half. My favorite color is brown, and this is one of my favorite shoes. And when I think about equality, equality is Andrew, you get a shoe, Dave get a shoe, Heidi get a shoe, Betsy it's like Oprah, everybody gets shoes. Okay, that's equality. But equity is giving everyone on this call a shoe that fits them. And you got to think about that. I mean, we really have to think about that. And since we are able to speak on this call, I actually have a question. Let's see here. Cindy. Cindy, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, we got two Cindys. Okay, well, since you unmuted Cindy Kane. Okay, Cindy Kane, I have a question for you. Cindy, will you mind sharing Cindy Kane, will you mind sharing what is your favorite color shoe to wear?
Probably brown.
Oh, yes. See, I knew it. We are vibing here. Now, Cindy, if you don't mind sharing with the group, what is your shoe size?
8.5.
Oh, 8.5. Okay, I'm a 10.5. Okay, Cindy, I have a question. If I ask you to show up to Rotary every day with my 10.5, nice looking brown shoe on, how will you feel?
Very uncomfortable because it would hurt.
It would hurt. Okay, thank you so much, Cindy, for your participation. My friends, did you all hear that? I asked Cindy, how would she feel if she showed up every day with my nice looking, spiffy, brown shoe, 10.5 on? Cindy responded and said, it will be uncomfortable and it will hurt. But what did Cindy not say? Cindy did not say, Dr. Jenkins, I don't care about your ugly brown shoe. It's not my size. And guess what? I'm not showing up to Rotary. Here's my point, my friends, is that we actually have people showing up to our organizations every day in the organizations, in the workplaces with shoes that are given to them. and it's not their size, but they're forced to wear them. And unfortunately, they're showing up very uncomfortable, even though it hurts. Some individuals have been showing up with those shoes so long that they learn how to make the uncomfortable become comfortable. What are you saying, Dr. Jenkins? Is that when we think about true equitable work, equitable is removing the structural barriers to opportunity so everyone can be the best they can be and meet them where they're at. And yes, it takes time, effort, and energy to do just that. But I know in research and in practice, when we strive for equity, we strive for the truth, and we strive for everyone to have access to the opportunities. And so as you can see in this chart here, the difference between equity and equality with the shoe perspective, you can see that first line of equality versus equity. The same perspective is that everyone, it's the easy thing to do, is to show up and give everyone the same shoe. But when people actually have their choice, not only do they feel better, they look better, and they won't be, Cindy will show up not feeling uncomfortable. And guess what? Cindy will not be standing up for the Rotary song and hurting. Okay. So these are things that we have to think about. Why is this important, Dr. Jenkins? Why are we even talking about this? Why do we have a DEI series that we have to continue these dialogues around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Well, here's the first case, what I see why we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I call it the moral case. We talk about this is because, this is what people share with me. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, right? Like, okay, like we are all humans and we have to do the right thing, okay? That's case number one. Case number two that I hear all across the world why we should talk about this is what I call the social case. The social case shares that we should talk about this because the world is changing. Like Dr. Jenkins, if I look at my community, it's everything. The demographics, the generations are changing, technologies are changing. So we should be changing too. That's the social case. But unfortunately, my friends, even if I ask you on this call, if you support the moral case or the social case, which I would not ask you that, I have seen in my practice that I've met several individuals who do not support the moral or social case for inclusion. So I work in corporate America. And one case that that's been very interesting, that always stuck really well, is what we call the business case. And the business case, my friends, yes, this is not all that pretty, but let me tell you about the business case of inclusion. In the business case, we see that if you get this right as an organization, guess what? You will make more money or save money. And you would be so surprised how many board members want to meet with me to learn how they can make more money or save money. That is the business case for inclusion. But I think we have a case on this call as well as Rotarians, the case for inclusion. And it shares with us that it makes us all bigger, better, and stronger together. It's very simple. We know that diversity is a core value of Rotarians. Yes, it's a core value. It's a part of what made us great. And inclusion only make us better and greater. And as you can see, it makes us more innovative, stronger. And one thing I love about inclusion is that everyone is included and everyone wins, including straight white old men. Everybody wins in inclusion. Yeah, I said it. We have to say it. Because so many times when we have these conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you are potentially a white older gentleman or man or other in the room, and sometimes we can go down the spectrum, it's like, okay, we have no role in this. No, yes, you do. We all have a role to play. We all have a role to play. Okay, that's why I love inclusion, because it makes us all better together. And as Rotarians, if we get this right, you think about we are waking up to serve, to change lives. we're going to imagine Rotary, inclusion allows for that to be activated. And that's why we're talking about this today. And we see this in research. The business case is strong. It's strong in organization development. It shows that when we get this right, and this is the stats, everything is better. We get more discretionary effort from members. What does that mean, Dr. Jenkins? The discretionary effort. Some people on the call may know what I'm talking about. The discretionary effort is, you know what? The banquet is over. And we see all these chairs that need to be put up. I have a choice to go home or to help everybody pick up the chairs. That's my internal discretionary effort. Well, if I don't like the organization that I'm in, do you think I'm going to use my discretionary effort to go clean up and pick up those chairs? Absolutely not. And we see this in organizations, and you can use that same example through so many things, committee works, even showing up, showing up to events. That's a discretionary effort that someone have in their psychological mindset or an element that they can make a choice. So when we see that you're getting inclusion right, people are more willing to relinquish their discretionary effort for your organization. That is beautiful. Okay, we know this. When you feel included, you're more likely to stay. You're more likely to come back. We see that in inclusion. We're more likely to have team collaboration. People are a lot more willing to work with each other. Wow, Dr. Jenkins, really? Yes, people work with people that they feel like they belong. And we have this conversation in Rotary clubs all across the world. I just don't know why people don't want to be on a committee. Well, let's ask the question around inclusivity. Maybe they don't feel like they belong, or maybe they just don't feel like they want to be a part of that committee. It could be one of the two. Last but not least, we see this, and I love this. This is very good and true. When you have inclusivity at its finest, people are willing to commit beyond any other, as well as they're willing to go tell others about how great that organization is. This is the business case for inclusion. Make sense? And this is why we're talking about it today. So you ask, why Rotary? Why now? Because, my friends, we have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to make this better. And I know that we're all doing this on the call, because that's why you showed up. Actually, the people who usually doesn't show up are the ones that we need to go and have a conversation with. And that's what I'm shaping my message to be different tonight, because usually the audience are the ones who really are already activating and trying to learn and do better. So I want to make sure I equip you all with some tools so you can go out and spread the good news, as they will say. So that's why Rotary, why now? Because everyone in this room is an influencer, and everyone in this room has the opportunity to be the champion of inclusion, and everyone in this room has a role to play. So let me give you all some stats, because one of the things I've learned in this work is some people love data. It's like, ooh, I feel good, but show me the data. They want to see the stats. So let me start with some representation stats from Rotary International. And of course, I would tell you that at Rotary, we're looking at, and I'm not a Rotary staff member, so I don't speak on the behalf of Rotary. Let me make sure I be clear there. But based on what I know and how involved I am, we are, Rotary organization is looking to add more demographics to the Rotary survey for the membership survey. But right now, globally, the stat that's very well established is gender, okay? We do have age, but age is not as reported as much as gender. So I want to give you some stats and updates around women in Rotary. So here's the opportunity, women in Rotary. Now, we haven't refreshed this for this year because we're waiting on the membership data to come out. But if you look at from January of last year, where we started, Rotarians, 24%. Look at the Rotaractors. Women in Rotary, 50%. So you can't tell me this can't get done. They're already doing it. Because some people would say that Rotary, anything affiliated with Rotary does not, they're not willing to change, and they're not going to ever. Rotarectors are already showing us that this can be done. And guess what? They don't really have a lot of D&I plans. They don't. They just live it out. And some people may argue and say, well, maybe it's the generational differences. I don't have a perspective right now on that, but I would share that if we look at this, we do have some wins, right? Because you got to look at the bigger picture. We have grown a lot over the last 30, Rotary, I think 87 before I was born. So that's about 32 years around that time. Yeah, around that time, Rotary has increased this women diversity, okay? But we are now seeing the stat. We have grown with how many clubs around the world who welcome women. Because my friends, I'm just gonna be honest, this was not always as high. But we have 85% of Rotary clubs around the world welcome women. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Why is that not 100%? That's the first question I always get. We have work to do. We have work to do. But I have a list. I pulled the list of countries, and I can share this out. But I think I'm not asking you to lean in and look at every name here. But I want to share with you that we do have, we set a goal around 30% that we would like for Rotary clubs to have at least 30% of women, as well as in your Rotary District leadership team, 30%. And here's over 100 countries that have at least 30% or more women in their Rotary club or district. So this gives me hope. It gives me hope that we can get these things done. And I would tell you, this list was at 50%, like it was not 100 clubs, it was 50 or 60 clubs. And then over the initiatives and champions and learning and intentional efforts, we have grown that. So I'm giving you the justification, the business case to share that this can be done. And when we look at women in Rotary leadership, I mean, this is the first time that we ever had 47% of our board is diverse with women. I mean, that is huge. That is huge. Now, we still have a lot of work to do, because when we start peeling out the other dimensions, like African Americans, Latinx, disability, LGBTQ, veterans, we get very, very low. So that means we still got to have these conversations. But I do want you all to know that we are progressing, because so many times we can get into the dialogue and the debate that we're not willing to do anything different. No, this gives me hope. Yes, I was with Jennifer last Friday, actually, President-elect Jennifer. And, you know, one thing is, everyone knows she's the first president who's so happened to be a woman, because she's so qualified, and she didn't get the role because she's a woman. She got the role because she is qualified, and she just so happened to be a woman. That message matters. Okay, and I'm just giving us some tools, because so many people say, oh, we got our first woman president. We lead with the gender and not lead with the qualification. That's a difference. We have a president who's just so happened to be a woman. You get how that goes? So we are so proud of Jennifer, that good friend of mine, and I'm so happy to see her in that role. And I'm so happy that she's not going to be the last person in that role that may look like her. And I also give honor to, I call her Mama Sylvia. Mama Sylvia was the first woman president at the club level. And she's also Jamaican, and she's also African. She identifies Black. But we don't talk about that story, but I'll let you know that she was that was a part of her storytelling. If you ever never heard her speak before, Mama Sylvia, I definitely want to give her honor as well in this space of champion women in Rotary. So I want to tell you all, as we do this work all across the world, we ask over 20,000 people of Rotarians, what is the biggest challenge you have or face around D&I? Anybody want to guess? Well, never mind. I don't have the letters up there for you to guess in the chat. But these are the questions that we ask, not knowing the right thing to say, because these are the things that we continue to hear. having the knowledge to influence change, feeling included within my organization, understanding the terminology, okay? What we have seen as the result of that question, over 69%, my friends, 69% said my biggest challenge is having the knowledge to influence change. I found that fascinating. And so that's what I like to give you all the knowledge so we could go out and continue to be change agents. So when we look at this here, this is our Rotary International position statement. Everyone should know about that on this call. If you don't know, it's on our website. It's everything. We actually kind of reworked it a little bit. We enhanced it from the task force perspective. But this position statement gives us a statement that we can say out loud as Rotarians, right? But a statement is just a statement. Now, the next thing I told, and we talk about this as a group, is that anyone can state anything, but you got to also embed it into what I call the 4 or 5 Ps. You got to embed it into the policies. You got to embed it into the programs. You got to embed it into the people. You got to also embed it into what I would call the power dynamics, okay? All of these P's matter in this space to make this statement become actionable, which I love that we are making actionable steps with this statement. So some of the things that we have worked on as with your help as clubs all around the world, with your help with clubs around the world, we have increased some policies and governance with diversity. And we have started to examine a lot of the structures and operating systems that really paralyze our growth for innovation in this space. So of course, you all may know, if you don't know, I share, we have flexible club structures. And we started having this conversation before the pandemic. But as you all see that now we have a lot of Zoom experts in Rotary. So people really know how to be flexible. I mean, the pandemic has really taught us a lot as Rotarians and how to stay connected with each other in our community. But we also have flexible club structures where individuals have morning, noon, evening clubs. Individuals meet in bars, they meet in churches, they meet at the schools. I went to Brazil, and when I was in Brazil, they met on the beach. And I like, ooh, that's really nice. And time you get there, they give you a cocktail. I'm just like, wow, I just don't know what type of Rotary experience that I deserve. No, it was really, really fun. But it's a lot of flexible club structures. That's one thing I really, really enjoy to see. You have satellite clubs, you have e-clubs. So it's things that we can explore. It's no age limit for Rotaract clubs. I actually saw something in the Council of Legislation that they're trying to change that. But that is something that they removed. And then we also, believe it or not, we actually had to put this in place because of a lot of the complaints that we receive around the world around harassment, members harassing each other and not giving the space for individuals to be themselves and feel welcome. And we didn't, we had to really lift something in place for our members to be held accountable. So once again, my friends, I want you all to see that we have things in motion and that's in practice to support what we're doing. And all of these items are located on the Rotary website, the D&I tab. And I'm also going to drop a link before we drop tonight in the chat, how you can access it. The other thing that I get a lot of question around is people ask me, how do we attract more diverse members, whatever you want to fill in, when my community is just white, rural, or wealthy? I get this question everywhere I go around the world. I haven't got this question in Africa. I get this question everywhere. It's like, how do we do that? And I would tell you, my friends, I'm gonna give you a couple practices because I'm pretty sure that question could be on this call today. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be. But I get that question quite often. So here's some best practices that I share with you all. The first thing I always tell people, before you recruit members, you got to be able to relate. You can't recruit people you don't know, and so go build the relationships. Yes, go get to know people in your community. And yes, I understand that, you know, it may be rural, but its diversity is in rural counties. We can't dismiss that. And diversity is not just skin tone. I think people forget that. It's also different classes and different professions, but it's also being able to give those opportunities to individuals that's in the community. So survey your community. The other thing I said was build relationships. Service projects is always fun, but once again, I'm just gonna be honest, sometimes it's a little challenging, you know, serving with people you don't know either. I'm just gonna be honest. It is not always the best carrot to say, hey, you know what, let's do a service project and help us raise money for our district grant. They don't know anything about Rotarians. They don't know you. And unfortunately, what we see, because I'm telling you, I do this work a lot and I'm just being honest. What we see is that sometimes you're serving two different communities. So you got to make sure you have and build a relationship so you have a shared service project. Don't invite them to your existing service project. Say, hey, what would you like to do? What can we discover together? You would be amazing what that simple question would do for you to create an authentic relationship and not a transactional relationship. And then people wonder why they only showed up for the service project and you never see them again, because it was very transactional, okay? The other thing is behaviors matter in this space. So how are you showcasing inclusion? You can showcase inclusion on your Facebook. You can share different stories. You could talk about how different changes are happening. I know, you know, in 7120, they have the Disability Club. I'm sorry, not Disability Club, excuse me, Lost Hard of Hearing, correct? Impaired Hearing Club. And so, is that correct?
Deaf Rotary Club of Rochester.
Deaf Rotary Club. And so a very diverse club there. But, you know, being able to share stories of how these communities meet together. The other big thing you can do is stand up, address inappropriate behavior. My friends, you will be amazed how many times we see inappropriate behavior and do nothing. What we do is we go home and talk about it with our friends and our spouses, but we don't feel like we have the courage to stand up, and we need more people to stand up. Now, I do believe that you must give grace and space. I do understand that mistakes happen, but mistakes should not continue to be repeated. You know, so we got to be able to hold each other accountable and really ensure that we're leaning in. Last but not least, of course, you can always invite other speakers in. I love this type of program. You have a virtual engagement, anyone can show up. Continue to do these things, even as we remove and go back to whatever we call back in office, back in place, or whatever you call that. Keep some of these things, because you never know that 1 or 2 or 3 people or 30 or 40 who have now got exposure to Rotary. We also put out a webinar series around accountability with some other panelists, and I'm going to also send you that link as well that you all can check out. So I just want to equip you all with resources so you all can be powerful beyond measure. The next thing I would tell you before we get ready to go to Q&A is a cool framework that I feel is very simple, even though it just looked very complicated on the screen. What we got to do when we think about lifting up inclusion activation is we have to think about the ecosystem. We got to think about the ecosystem, and we got to look at all of these elements as we lift up the ecosystem. And this is not necessarily a DEI committee work. I'm going to be very, very clear on that, because a lot of clubs, a lot of districts that I've worked with, they feel like if I have a DEI committee, we are good, we are done, we have arrived. Yes. Like, no, your DEI committee is just an enabler. It's a resource. It's a support group. But the individuals who actually lift up inclusivity are the members, right? So my first advice to everyone in this framework is involve everyone in this process, even the ones who are difficult. Involve, their voice matter. I have to say that because a lot of people don't like to deal with them and they exclude them. But you'll never understand their perspective if you don't model the behavior you wish to see. The next thing I would say is don't allow inclusion to only be in a speaker. Okay, we have Women's History Month. We got a woman speaker. Yay, we got inclusion for the year. Oh, it's Black History Month. Let's go get the Black person to speak. No, that is not inclusion, my friends. Extend inclusion to all your activities. Make it to what you think, say, or do, right? It's inclusion. Extend it to all your activities. And of course, where you can measure what you do so you can always improve. So those are my recommendations of how you can lift up your framework. And I love these L's. I always say I love, even though that starts with the L. What I learned in this space is you got to listen, learn to lead, okay? And so many people like to start with, sometimes they stay in a certain stage. I've met some Rotarians for the last 5 years, and I love them. I love them. I really do. But some of them are just still listening. They're still listening. They're still learning. And I'm asking, when are you ready to lead? And guess what, my friends? You don't always have to lead from the front. You can lead from the front, the middle, or the back, or the sidelines. Everyone has a role to play. So here's some last quick things that you could take action. Take a fresh look at your club. Don't think we have all figured it out. So I want to leave you with that thought. Take a fresh look at your club. Ask some questions. Bring your community into it. One of the clubs that I met in LA, they created a community board that's non-Rotarians to get other perspectives, right? I thought that was really cool. Of course, you can always invite speakers in or invite experiences in. That's what I love. Go out and experience inclusion. Allow this inclusive experience to be a part of being a Rotarian. Because my friends, do you know, I have met a lot of Rotarians who have never experienced Rotary. And we can cultivate that as members on this call. Create a plan and measure progress. Of course, you can get involved with things at the international level. It's all types of fellowships. They're so fun. If you're a part of a fellowship, but if you haven't, get involved. Rotary is so big. We love to stay involved in our community, but I have really been able to be so refreshed, and my bucket continue to be filled with all that Rotary offer across the global platform. And of course, we have a lot of resources that I'm going to share with you all as a follow-up that you can all equip your toolbox or toolkit and share with your D&I committee or with your organization. These are a lot of things that our task force or our committee has created for Rotary International's specific topics. So last but not least, my friends, I hope that you understood what I said today with the Bowtie conversation, is that we all have a role to play. We all have a justification why this matters. The business case is pretty clear to me, but now we have to activate our role. And so I leave you with that thought. What role will you play? What role will you play? Because I know that together, we strive to create a world, and we will make that difference. So thank you all for allowing me to come in and share a little bit about some updates. Hopefully you all found it helpful. Hopefully you found that we level set around D&I. I gave you all some tools, some things to consider, gave you all some updates, some best practices, so you can go and activate it. And now I want to open it up for Q&A so we can have a discussion. These are all the things if you want to connect with me, I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Dr. Bowtie Todd. But I'm an open book. So if you want to talk about D&I, personal and professional life, and ask a question or comment, we can do this at this time. Is that okay, Dave or Andrew? Oh, I see everyone's like shaking their head. People are ready.
Ready.
Yeah. Great.
Well, I'm thinking, since we have a small group, maybe rather than just reading the questions from the chat, maybe folks can ask their questions directly and engage the group. So the first question that came in was from Evan. And Evan, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, well, I'd seen a note saying we were lacking them, so I stuck one in there. No. So Todd, you're out there, preaching and sometimes preaching to the choir. But are we seeing any motion? Are we seeing any changes? Any clubs and Rotarians visibly making an effort to incorporate DEI?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. It is so many cases I would call case studies and best practices that clubs are creating. Clubs are being so creative with this D&I focus, with D&I mind. And so, yes, I'm seeing a lot of wins. I'm seeing individuals think differently. I'm seeing individuals break down, traditions that really got in the way of, being for individuals being their best selves or authentic selves. And I have so many cases from that we have learned and heard around individuals' fee model, different fee structure models. I've seen, Rotary clubs, they rotate their locations. So one of the things we saw in our area, we had a lot of school teachers who could not make it to the Rotary lunch meeting. And so guess what Rotary did? They took the Rotary meeting to the school. And that's where all the teachers were able to go to a Rotary meeting. So they did that rotation well. I also saw something that happened. This is interesting, especially anyone that's in the DG line. If you have companies and corporations, sometimes they're very busy that they can't get out to the Rotary meeting. You can actually start a Rotary club. Think about it. I live in Bentonville, Arkansas, Rotary Club of Walmart. So it's a lot of interesting ways that we have seen with the flexibility. The other thing that I've seen, my friends, is that, some clubs are starting to join each other too in these efforts to know that it's bigger than just us, just one club. They're trying to make a community impact. So I've saw some very bold moves by some clubs, and I see a lot of clubs are not starting to tolerate. They're not tolerating the inappropriate behavior anymore. They're reporting it. They have a channel now, and members are being held accountable. So I am very hopeful. I'm very hopeful that if we continue on this path of progression, we will be here another 100 years. If we don't, all our legacies will be lost. That's the truth. I mean, we all contribute to the foundation. So if we want the money to live, inclusion better be a part of our DNA. Okay, that's my
I agree. I agree so much with that thought. We have another question if you're ready.
Yes, of course.
Okay, then this question comes from Kate. And Kate, I see that you're still here. And would you like to pose your question?
Did I write a question?
I have the cost of member.
Oh, it was a comment in the things that I think that make it difficult for us to reach out to a diverse community is just costs, and then kind of an ongoing expectation of additional ways people can contribute financially kind of can become a little bit burdensome if someone doesn't have those kind of resources. It was a comment. It wasn't really a question, but I've really enjoyed Dr. Bowtie's comments just so much. And I love watching your face while you talk. So I'll let you continue. Thank you.
I need to record you and send it to my wife.
No, I think, Kate, I think that's a good question. And so let's turn that back to Dr. Jenkins. So a barrier of entry, our membership dues, barrier of entry could be the cost of participating in breakfast or lunches or other, things that cost money to participate. And what is the thinking around that if conversations are occurring?
Yeah, well, Jennifer Jones said this last week, and I mostly agree with a lot of things Jennifer said, but this one I probably slightly disagreed. But in theory, she said that everyone will make time for what they want to make time for. I do agree with that in theory. I do agree with that, but in practice, you can't make time for something you don't know, and you wasn't exposed to it. And you don't know the know-how, and you don't have the social capital to allow time to be made. And a lot of the things that we have seen in the Rotary Wheel is based on who you know and how you get referred. And of course, we don't have that, anyone can go for membership, but your club is only the extension of your members that's in the club. So number one, I think from a structural standpoint, we have to be able to position Rotary in places that Rotary has never been, okay? Especially in diverse communities. The next thing I would say from a fee structure, I would say that this is a problem for Rotary in general. I think people like to call it just a diversity problem. No, it's Rotarians can't pay for their own meals and their own fee. So I think we got to think about that as a club, as a district. What are some opportunities for grants for, clubs or members could, to buy in? At my club, I'm in a club of 200 plus members. And I lift up the under the 35 rule, and under 35 was more or less that we pay 50% of dues and we pay everything back in service. But then being inclusive, some individuals who were over 35 asked to opt into those rules, and we were fine with that. So I think you all have to, I don't think it's one size fit all, but I do think it's about having a conversation in the room with your club, with your board, and taking those challenges to the forefront so it can be a solution for it.
Thank you. I do see a question from Sue from Sydney.
Oh, I thought you were going to read it. Okay.
Where is that?
I was just wondering if you could give an example of a DEI activity besides inviting a speaker. And thank you for the presentation. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so some other activities you can do is like go to the local museums, go look at history, go on immersion trips together as a club. Those are fun. Go to the communities that sometimes you ride by and say, ooh, those are the communities that you can go have some great activities with. And also I say some other cool activities is some get to know you. I mean, these are going back to some basic fun activities, right? Get to know each other. One of the most powerful activities I see, even I do facilitate with companies, is individuals sharing their inclusive story. What does that mean? Allowing people to say why this is important to them, or to share how did they arrive to inclusion. You will be amazed, and when you open that up to your members, the type of stories that you can really learn is very rich. And people have a lot to share. They just never was asked. So I think those are some small activities you can do. But I say be interactive, go have fun, go watch movies together, read a book together and talk about it, eat different foods. All of those things are D&I activities. So that'd be my answer.
Thank you. Got that, Dave?
I don't, there are other comments, but it might be time for any concluding thoughts that you may have, Dr. Jenkins.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, first, once again, I am so excited. I'm always passionate about this because you all give me hope. I really do. I really, really mean that. And I don't want you to sleep on your power or your potential in this space. We all need each other. I see everyone on this call. You all made time and space to hear little old me, but really the good old action happens when we end this Zoom call. What role will you play? And thank you so much for having me. I love you all.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.